Welcome to App Stories, a weekly exploration of the world of apps. Today's show is brought to you by Spark from Riedel. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is my co-host, Federico Vitici. Hi, Federico.
Hey, John. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing really well. How's it going with you? I know you're deep in doing some crazy automated testing of your iPhone 10. It sounds very interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing what you write about.
Yeah, I've been working on this story about the iPhone 10. I look at the big picture themes that I really wanted to write about, more of a high concept kind of story instead of like focusing on the details of what's the notch all about or how does it feel to have a glass back? Well, it shatters. That's how it feels like.
You already tested that.
Yeah, I tested that, and it breaks. Turns out. So I really wanted to focus on these sort of higher concept themes. Hopefully, the story should be out very soon. At this point, I think. And one of the more time consuming parts was because I want to have all these tests for the iPhone 10's battery.
Right.
So I bought basically all the chargers I could find and all the most interesting batteries, like USB-C stuff, especially. And really, the time-consuming part is not running the test itself, because I'm running this 60-minute test in airplane mode with the screen turned off to kind of assess the charging percentage of all these different devices and accessories. The time-consuming part is running the iPhone down again to 1% or to 0, because it just won't happen as quickly as I want it to happen.
That's an interesting result in and of itself, right?
I guess that's the takeaway, really. I mean, there's going to be numbers, there's going to be fancy charts. I mean, as fancy as I can make them in numbers. But yeah, I guess the takeaway is that as much as I tried, and trust me, I made workflows to combine all the hardware actions that workflow has to try and maybe to flash the flashlight or use the vibration on the device or even encode video, which in theory should be an energy consuming process, but really with the A11 Bionic, it's really not. It doesn't care. So the takeaway is I tried to go, for example, from 80% to 0 in an hour, and I just couldn't figure out a way to do so. I tried benchmarks for the GPU in Safari. I tried unoptimized iPhone apps and games. I tried metal benchmarks. There are apps on the App Store that you can download to run like OpenGL benchmarks. I tried encoding audio. I tried doing multiple encodings of video. It just won't happen.
Wow.
I wanted to consume like 1% per minute, and I just couldn't figure out a way. So, yeah.
All right. Well, it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to reading your story. We have a little bit of follow-up from our last show. Do you want to cover what you were hearing from people on Twitter?
Yeah, a few people on Twitter replied with this interesting comment, and I think I totally understand why they brought this up. That, we were talking about apps and good intentions and sort of keeping all these apps that we want to push ourselves to use in a folder. And a lot of people, at least 4 to 5 people, which by my standards on Twitter, 4 to 5 people with the same comment is a lot of people. They replied saying, why don't you, remove them from the folder and put them on your home screen? Because if you really want to push yourself to use them, then why do you tuck them away in a folder that's out of sight and then maybe you forget? Just put it on your home screen and just use them. And while that is true, and in fact, I think I'm well known for constantly tweaking my home screen and trying new things and, changing the apps that I use on a very frequent basis, because I believe that reinvention and curiosity are really healthy for the type of business that I run. But I think this is ironic that by having all these scattered icons on multiple home screens, I think it becomes easier to block them out, even from a visual perspective. If you have all these colored icons on your multiple home screens and not having a single place where you can say, okay, this is the stuff that I know I'm supposed to be doing or that I want to push myself to do, I think it's better, for me at least, to have a single folder that has a catchy name or whatever, that I can say, these are all the apps that I want to use more. Instead of having to go find them across 3 to 4 pages, I can just open a single folder and I can see them all there. And I think it's a stronger visual reminder for me than putting them on a folder and, for example, on my home screen, because somehow if I put them on my home screen, I'm not going to use them anyway. And also my eyes are going to block them out, just like I block out ads and banners on web pages.
Right. I tend to agree with that too. I will put things on my home screen from time to time, but they don't tend to be these kind of good intention apps. They tend to be things that I'm testing for Mac stories, whether it's
Right.
an app that I just need to use more in order to write a review. It might slot in at the bottom of my home screen, or if it's something where I have an app that I've been using for a long time and to really understand an alternative app, I really just have to get rid of the one that's a habit for pressing, like, switching Twitter clients or switching text editors. I have to just move, Ulysses or Tweetbot off that first page because I'll just go to it out of habit and then, switch it in with something else that I'm actually testing. But I don't, like you, I don't really do that with the good intention apps very often.
So, John, I think it's time that we talk about the Apple Watch, because we mentioned the Apple Watch a lot, but we never did a single episode just about the Apple Watch and the apps that we use on the Apple Watch, and also how we actually use the watch on a daily basis, which I think is interesting because we are using two different Apple Watch models. I think you have the Series 3, I have the Series 2. But I wanted to discuss if maybe the Apple Watches that we have today are living up to the promise, or sort of to the idea of the always-on wearable device that we were sold over 2 years ago at this point. So I'm gonna go first, if you don't mind. I have the good and old Series 2 Apple Watch that was released last year. Ideally, I would want to get the Series 3, but we don't have the cellular model in Italy. So I need to tell you that I considered on multiple occasions over the past few weeks just getting the standard Series 3 Apple Watch in Italy with no LTE, just because I would love to have like the faster performance and the better battery life, and also the faster Siri that talks back to you.
Right.
But I keep thinking about it because it's not like buying a new lightning cable. It's over 400 euros worth of Apple Watch.
Right.
I would also need to sell my Apple Watch Series 2, and I don't really like selling old stuff, just the logistics of selling stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, I would want to find a friend who wants to buy my old Apple Watch. But also, I know that maybe if I buy the non-LTE Series 3 watch now, and it comes out the cellular version in Italy in February, then I'm going to have a problem because I will want that version instead. So I'm resisting the temptation of getting the non-LTE Series 3 watch. I'm sticking with the Series 2.
Okay.
Which it's fine. It's fine. I have a sport model. Right now I have a white sport band.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love it. I like it. I don't love it. I think I would love the Series 3.
Yeah.
Especially, I kind of want to go back to a steel version.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the one I have is fine, but I'm craving the Series 3.
I don't want to tempt you any further, but I would say of the new aspects of the Series 3, the cellular is the one that has meant the least to me so far.
Oh, man.
And that's only because I have my phone with me all the time, really. I mean, I know there was one time I was walking home after a long day in the city, and my phone just ran out of juice, and I was getting text messages, and I was still able to get those and swipe out a little quick answer to someone. That was really handy. I've gone for a couple of runs where I used the cellular connection. But even there, with watchOS 4, you can, when it's charging overnight and it's on your Wi-Fi network, it'll sync over your recent music and some of the playlists, like Heavy Rotation and a couple of the other built-in playlists. So there's music. There's already like a few hundred songs on my watch, even if I don't use the cellular. And I think the other day I ran out and ran an errand, and I actually just forgot my phone, left it on my desk. And I was out, and I think I got like all of one notification while I went down to the drugstore or something. So the battery life is impressive. If I have a pretty quiet day where I'm working a lot and not getting up and moving around a lot or exercising, so I'm not, using the GPS and that kind of thing, I can actually get through 2 days with this watch now. And the performance of the apps is a lot better. It's a lot faster, but I mean, I think this is something we're going to talk about a little more when we get into how exactly we use it. I'm not quite in the habit of using apps as much as I think I would have been if the Apple Watch had been this fast from the beginning, because I definitely got out of the habit of using apps because it was so hard to do on the Series 0 and the Series 2.
See, you're not helping here
I
at all.
know, Federico.
Like I
But
was at the Apple Store just 2 days ago, and I was looking at, they have the tables with the with all the Apple Watches. And I was looking at them. I was like, maybe, Sylvia has been asking me what do you want for Christmas, and
there you go.
I'm like, maybe
I'll tell you. I mean, I don't know what the plans are like in Europe or what they would be like when it eventually comes to Italy. But another thing to consider with the cellular is, and I know this was covered by ATP, I don't know, a month or two ago. Casey List pointed out that the $10 a month he's paying AT&T is really closer to $17 with all the taxes that they do. Now it's different here. I mean, they do state level and federal level and all kinds of taxes that they may not do the same in Italy or the UK or wherever. But there's definitely, some additional hidden cost here and there. Here, and I've started to wonder whether I should even be using the cellular features if I'm only using them, I don't know, a handful of times each month.
this is something that I will follow up on.
We'll talk.
I'm still thinking about it, and now I'm sure I will get all kinds of emails and tweets from people saying, "Oh, you should totally get it. I don't use the cellular feature at all."
Thanks to Spark by Riedel for sponsoring App Stories this week. Spark is smart. Its smarts start with the inbox, which surfaces what's important and cleans up the rest. New email messages are smartly categorized into personal, notifications, and newsletters. It's powerful, too, with natural language search that makes it easy to find what you're looking for. Just search the way you think and let Spark do the hard part. Smart notifications filter out the noise, letting you know when email is important and saving you from notification overload. Spark even gives you calendar invitations that have their own beautiful card with one-tap acceptance. See if you want to accept without even leaving Spark. You can also schedule emails to be sent later and set up a follow-up reminder if you don't receive a reply. Quick replies get the point across with just a tap. Love, like, or acknowledge an email in an instant. Spark looks great too. That terrible forward and quote mess in your inbox is now replaced with a beautiful threaded message design. Spark is also smart about customization. You decide what swipes do and which cards are shown. You can also snooze an email and get it back when the time is right. Snoozing works on all your Apple devices. Spark is smart about integrations. It supports Dropbox, Box, iCloud Drive, and more. And soon, Spark will reinvent how teams collaborate. Spark for Teams, which is Spark 2.0, is coming in the next few months and is going to change everything. Thanks again to Spark by Riedel for supporting the show.
So, what do we do with the Apple Watch? I think a lot of people associate, and for good reason, the Apple Watch with notifications. And being able to use quick actions when you receive a notification on your wrist instead of taking the iPhone out of your pocket or your purse or your bag or whatever, you can just act on the Apple Watch. And while I tried to buy into that sort of workflow, into that idea initially, but over time, I realized that really the only notifications that I consistently take action on via the Apple Watch are iMessage notifications. And I think part of this goes back to the idea of the way I see it, actionable notifications are only as useful as the kinds of actions that are embedded within the notification. And I find most notifications from Apple Watch apps to be too limited. Yes, it's nice that I can mark stuff as read. Yes, it's nice that I can archive an email directly from a quick action. But I feel like because it's a proprietary app, because it's got all these custom hooks into the system, the things that I can do with iMessage notifications on the Apple Watch, like I can send back an emoji, I can send back one of X preset responses, I can scribble. I surprisingly do a lot of the scribbling stuff. One time I was at the dentist. Of course, I couldn't get the iPhone out of my pocket, but Sylvia was texting me from the waiting room.
Uh-huh.
I was sitting on the dentist chair.
Right.
And she was doing something. And I really wanted to reply to Sylvia. So I put my wrist up and using my index finger, I just scribbled the response. It was a terrible, terrible Italian sentence, but it worked. And like Sylvia got the meaning of what I was saying. So
Right.
I think I would love to have more actionable or richer or more flexible actionable notifications. But right now, really, the only ones I care about, I glance a lot at notifications, whether it's like the Canary camera that we have or Carrot weather notifications or Slack, of course. But I think glancing doesn't really sell the Apple Watch. I would love to have more powerful, actionable stuff going on.
Yeah, well, with something like Slack, you can't do anything at all. All you do is see the
Exactly.
notification, and that drives me a little batty.
Exactly. The other feature that actually this is probably the single reason why I keep the Apple Watch on all the time. In addition to sleep tracking, which I do using, we wrote about it. I use Auto Sleep on the Apple Watch. It's this sleep tracking application that syncs back to the iPhone, saves data in HealthKit, and then you can maybe hook it up to gyroscope. It's really nice. You don't need to do anything. It just looks at data from your Apple Watch and figures out when you were sleeping. It's awesome. But the other feature is the heart rate monitor. Because, when I did chemotherapy a few years ago, then after I get out of that, the doctors told me you got to do, among various checkups on an annual basis, you need to keep an eye on your heart and if it's in good shape, if it's still pumping blood as it's supposed to do. So
Right.
I think it's when I feel maybe a little faster heart rate, or I just like the peace of mind of knowing that I can just look at my wrist and have a measure in just a few seconds. I think that's awesome. But also being able to have a historical log of my heart rate over time, just being automatically assembled by the Apple Watch and saved into the health app on the iPhone. And especially now with the new stuff in WatchOS 4, you can get alerts. For example, if your heart rate just jumps up after a few minutes of inactivity because it thinks that maybe something weird is going on, I think that's awesome. And being able to have these again, it all goes back to the peace of mind of having this tiny computer that also happens to be a heart rate monitor. And we've heard the stories of, what's the guy's name, James Green, I think, that the Apple Watch detected like a really bad heart condition, and he
Right.
was able to rush to the hospital, and basically kind of the Apple Watch saved his life because he was able to see a doctor right away.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely the heart rate. I mean, I have the heart rate widget to the top of my dock in WatchOS 4. So yeah, it's the single feature that I use the most.
Yeah, that's interesting. I use notifications. Well, my use of notifications has evolved over time. When I was working downtown Chicago as a lawyer, I had a system that I really loved, and this was before I had the Series 3. I had all of my Mac Stories type stuff go to my watch and alert me
Mm.
there, and all of my lawyer stuff went to my phone and alerted me there.
Ah, see, that was clever.
Yeah, even without looking at either device, I knew who was trying to get hold of me, right? So that was really handy. I don't have that anymore. So I still use the notifications though, and I don't respond much using the notifications, but I do like the fact that I can take a quick look at my watch and just see what's going on, because a lot of times it's an email that is just not important, but it might be
Mhm.
something that's important, and I can know and not have to pull out my phone constantly all day and interrupt whatever conversation I'm having with someone. So I do like using the notifications for things like Carrot Weather. I use iMessage is probably the one that I use the most, but I keep an eye on Slack there as well
Mhm.
as Airmail and the occasional Todoist item and deliveries when I have a package coming to my house. So the notifications have been a good part of what, probably the biggest part of what I use the Apple Watch for, especially since early on it was better at notifications than it was at actually running the app.
Do you use Siri especially on the new Apple Watch? Do you find it useful?
I don't use it much.
Hmm.
And I think that that's partly the old habit of not using it much in the past. And I think I need to give it more of a workout and try it some more. And that's true with everything on the Series 3. I fell into, especially when I had the original Apple Watch, just fell into that routine of I would use it for workouts and I would use it for notifications and telling the time, and that was about it. And now I do need to try to use Siri a little more. I really, maybe, I don't know, a handful of times a week at most, set alarms or timers, that kind of thing.
I ask because I've been trying things, the task manager for iOS and the Mac. This is a much bigger discussion about task management and changes to my life and all that we'll save for a future episode
Okay.
if I stick with things.
If you ever figure out what you're going to do, right?
If I ever figure out what I want to do with my life, I think that's the bigger discussion.
That's a big question.
That's a big question, right? I think we wouldn't be able to solve that with the podcast, but I make it sound more problematic than it is. Really, it's just a matter of setting personal schedules and stuff.
Right.
Anyway, things, I think it's one of the few task managers that they are taking advantage of the new APIs in iOS 11 and watchOS 4 so that you can talk to the Siri extension for things on the Apple Watch. And it performs the commands that you ask more independently than others, for example. Like you can create tasks via Siri on the Apple Watch in things, and that doesn't always work for other task managers, even if they have a SiriKit extension on iOS 11. And I think it's because they are fully embracing watchOS 4, which maybe other companies like Todoist, I'm not sure they did, especially like the last time I looked, it didn't. You couldn't create a task using the Todoist on watchOS 4. So I don't know if that's changed, but I know that's one of the perks of things on the Apple Watch. So I assume if you combine that with the Apple Watch Series 3, that should be a really nice experience because you get a faster Apple Watch app and Siri support and cellular integration directly on the Apple Watch, which should be nice for a task manager.
For the record, Todoist cannot create tasks yet. I just took a quick look.
Yeah. I think you gotta integrate not just with SiriKit in iOS 11, but also with SiriKit in watchOS 4. Or you need to have a watchOS 4 app. I'm not sure what's the requirement there. I don't use the Honeycomb home screen at all, basically. There are two ways that I get into apps on my Apple Watch, from the watch face and from the dock. So I'm gonna look right now. In my dock, I have the heart rate. I have the Now Playing widget, which for some reason is more reliable than, for example, the Overcast app. There's some performance issues in iOS 11 and watchOS 4.
Yeah, there are.
But it doesn't pause playback for me. But the Now Playing widget does. So I have Shazam and Workout. Then I have Carrot, which I'm pretty sure the developer is working on this sort of big update for the Apple Watch version that I'm not sure when it's coming out. I haven't actually even played with it yet, but I think it's going to be nice. So Carrot, we talked about it a bunch of times. It integrates with Weather Underground, which works really well for me here in Rome. And Shazam, I would love to use more. This is one of the apps with good intentions. I want to use Shazam more on my Apple Watch, but I was burned by Shazam on the watch multiple times in the past when it just didn't work. So like I was shopping and there was in a store and there was a nice song playing on the radio inside the store, and I used Shazam on the watch and it didn't work and I lost the song forever.
Right, you just watch it spin and the song's over.
Spin and spin and no song. And I was like, man, I really wanted to know that song. If I took the time to grab my iPhone, it would have worked.
Right.
The app that I want to mention today, in addition to Things, which is really nice on the Apple Watch, it's got the most boring name ever. It's called Grocery.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's a really nice app, though.
So it's a really nice app with a really bad icon. They're using this lemon emoji as the icon, but for some reason, I'm not sure if you've ever seen this, John, but it's kind of a low-res emoji. It's not even a retina quality emoji. I'm not sure what the problem is, but if you download the app and I think if you buy the in-app purchase to unlock all the features, I think you can use custom icons. And right now I have the strawberry emoji as the app icon on my iPhone, which looks so much nicer.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. Anyway, Grocery is nice because it lets you set up a shopping list, right? When you want to go buy groceries.
Right.
But the difference is that over time, the app learns from your shopping habits and the order in which you buy things inside the store. So as you're walking inside the supermarket and you grab a bunch of onions, a bunch of apples, and some some cheese, and then some cookies, the order that you check those things off, the app learns, well, that's the usual path that you take. So the next time you go into your shopping list and you re-add those items, they will be automatically sorted for you based on the previous check-in habits, like the way that you check things off.
Mm-hmm.
So like now when I'm adding vegetables and I'm adding cookies and orange juice, I don't need to sort things manually because the app does that for me, because it knows the order of things that I buy inside the store, which is super awesome.
Yeah, that is nice.
It's machine learning, man. It's machine learning for groceries. It's the future.
It is the future. I've got that's one of those good intention apps that I have in my folder that I haven't. I've used it a little bit, but not as much as I'd like. And I know that I've known that you've used that for a while, and I wanted to try it out and see how it is. So maybe I'll try it with the Apple Watch. I guess the other things besides notifications that I do with my Apple Watch a lot are the workouts, tracking workouts,
Right.
and then things like alarms. Alarms are very boring, but I charge my watch on my nightstand at night and put it in the alarm clock mode where you put it on its side and it shows the time, which works really well. And I just use that as my alarm clock now. And so I have a bunch of different alarms that I set depending on when I'm getting up and do that. And then on workouts, I usually use the Apple Workout app, but I also use Workouts Plus, which is a David Smith app. It's got, it's a little deeper, has more features than the Apple one, but the Apple one is so fast to get started because I just put at the top a walking workout and a running workout, which are what I normally do. And all I have to do is, raise my wrist, one quick tap, and it starts tracking the workout. So that's what I've been using it for in terms of just fitness and stuff. I don't use the heart rate monitor as much. I mean, I use it, but I don't dive into that very often, although it is in my dock as well.
Cool. Are there any other apps you want to mention? I only have one, which is, of course, pCalc by James Thompson. It's the only calculator that I use on my devices. It's the only calculator that I have on my Apple Watch. It's there was a time when Sylvia and I, we needed to calculate the expenses of all kinds of things that we bought at one specific supermarket. And I used to use the pCalc on the Apple Watch to calculate the total amount as we were shopping. Which, this was 2 years ago, was when the Apple Watch just came out. So everybody was just walking inside the supermarket and looking at me like I was a crazy person tapping on his watch.
Yeah.
And I got a bunch of questions like, is that the Apple Watch? Actually, it was people saying, is that the iWatch? And I was like, well, actually, yes, it's the Apple Watch. I don't know why.
Correcting people again.
Why do I do this? Why do I keep mentioning this? I don't know. But yeah, pCalc.
As an aside, I actually lectured somebody about force quitting apps over the weekend. So
no.
I know how you feel. And then I was like, I shouldn't have done that.
You really shouldn't have done.
No, I know. It's like you don't. That doesn't do anything.
And they're never gonna believe you. It's a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy. So you need to buy a new iPhone. That's what people think.
The one last thing I guess I would mention is Apple News, which I really didn't think that I would like this on the watch.
Apple?
Yeah, no, because you know what it is?
News on your wrist?
Well, I don't use it a lot, but I've been using the Siri watch face, and I left the Apple News on, and every now and then there'll be a headline. I mean, if there's a headline that looks like something that I really don't want to look at, I just ignore it. But every now and then there'll be something, and I'll tap into it, and it just gives you a little summary, and you can save it for later, back in the news app on the phone if you want. And I think it displays 5 at a time, and you just kind of swipe through them and see what's going on in the world, and then be done with it. So I don't know. It was one that I've been using a lot more recently, and since I've been using the Siri watch face, and it's a lot better than I expected it to be, because I was going to turn it off, but I do kind of like it once in a while.
Yeah. Well, how many bad news do you need at a time?
Yeah,
well, 5 is enough. It seems.
Sometimes the bad news seems better when it's in this little tiny square on
okay.
on your wrist.
Okay, I'm sure.
All right, Federico. Well, I think that's enough for this week. We'll be back next week with another episode. Thanks again to our sponsor today, Spark from Riedel. And you can find both of us writing on MacStories.net and for Club Mac Stories. Federico is at Viticci on Twitter. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees, JOHNVOORHWES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.